Yoo-hoo, what's up, guys? Coming from the video of my Ultimate Dungeon Guide, actually a bunch of people asked me, like, okay, how's your R5 running right now? My response to that was, it's pretty much the same as it was in my last video, which was the Deborah video, which it's pretty much the same team as this. But then they mentioned, like, okay, but there's a few things different. You got a bunch of skunks here and there, you got a bunch of different stuff. What is different with that team and what you're currently running? And that's actually a pretty good point because there has been a balance change where the ROBO that is water actually gets invincibility, and because of that invincibility, you have to change a few things. It also runs slightly slower because of that. And I've made a bunch of other changes as well. For example, I no longer use the Zyrals. I no longer use a Theomars people ask for. I got a bunch of skins here and there, and people have been asking, like, okay, why are those changes? Should I go for those changes as well? And what exactly happened? So first off, I will go over those changes that I made. Then I will talk about things that I did to make this run slightly smoother. I added in a bunch of skins, but I'm not necessarily if all of the skins are necessary, but I'll point out the ones that I think are necessary to make this smoother. This team pretty much doesn't fail unless we don't have armor breaks from both Loren and Jultan at the same time. It is very unlikely, but it is sometimes happening. And definitely the best way to test if your, well, R5 is working is just record it. That's definitely the best way. Just record it, let it run, because if you're staring at the screen, you could be staring at the screen for like 10 minutes, nothing goes wrong, you look away 1 second and suddenly your team is failing. And you're like, what the hell just happened to the whole team? Because that didn't happen the whole time I was looking at it. So for me, I always record it, and then when I record it, at some point my screen goes to black and that kind of stuff. But that is personally for me the best way to check this. So the team is running between 22 seconds, about 22.8 and about 24, 25 seconds max. And the big difference is still, can this Konamiya put the research before the jump or after the jump? If it is before the jump, we will get around 22.8 to 23 seconds. If it is after the jump, then it will get around like 24. So in this case, we will probably get a 22-second run, and this run is still crazy as hell. And yeah, pretty much that. So let's look over the changes that I made in this team. So let's actually end it, and then I can check over the changes easier. So 23 point something low. So let's look at the changes that I made. If we see select dungeon rates, yes. Changes that I made that are very specific are Juno is in here. Why is Juno in here and not Theomars? Well, the answer is very simple. I needed Theomars for my siege defense. So I needed a 24 lead. It doesn't matter what kind of 24 lead it is. Could be Juno, could be Pungbeak, could be pretty much anything that it's 24 lead that you can throw on triple fight, and it shouldn't take a turn. So I had to make my Juno pretty slow because she actually gets the passive speed buff and that kind of stuff. She just should not take a turn. Does it? It doesn't have to be Juno. It's just a 24 lead. Could literally be any unit on 24 lead. Preferably something that can kind of survive. That is somewhat useful, but that is about it. Then the next change I made was this thing. And I had the Zyrals in here before. The big difference is where if you use a Zyrals, you're going to need a shield set. Or you need a Zyrals that is pretty much level 1. And what are the two differences? Well, in the first hit of the boss, only this unit dies. Therefore, you will get 3 stacks. You have will runes, so you're at 4 stacks. If you have shield runes on any of those units, this unit doesn't have to die, because then you're already at 5. But if you do not have that, you need this unit to die as well. So for that reason, I had to make this unit, I didn't want to put any shield sets in there because it kind of messed up other things slightly bit, mainly for the healing of Colleen and that kind of stuff. So I had to put in a unit that 100% dies. Therefore, we have the Rakshasa in there rather than the Zyrals. If you have a level 1 Zyrals with pretty weak runes, you can definitely get away with it, but you need these kind of stats on the Zyrals, probably even lower, if you want the Zyrals to always die. Then we also had the change for this unit, and that's mainly on the speed unit. This unit actually has to move first in this team. Normally it didn't have to move at all, but currently it has to move first because he will get invisibility. And because of him getting invisibility, you actually have to put him towards taking a turn. It takes a split second. It's very solo. It doesn't take too much time, but he needs to take that turn to get rid of his invisibility. If you do not do that, then that unit doesn't take a turn, he will get invis, and then on the second rotation, so this one dies and this one dies, and then on the second rotation, this one dies and the Colleen dies. If that doesn't happen, you will not have 5 stacks 2 times, and therefore you will pretty much not win. So those are the conditions that are pretty important to keep in there. Other things that you might have mentioned is that Loren has a skin right now and Jultan has a skin right now. Jultan's skin, I think, is necessary. Odin's skin is necessary that you don't have it. So those things are necessary. I think Joe Gunn doesn't need any skin, doesn't have a skin. Well, probably has a skin, but doesn't really need it. But those units are important to have skins. I think Loren's skin does help and Jultan's skin does help. So those things you have to keep in mind. I also have this thing on the skin. I think it helps, but I'm not 100% sure about it, in all honesty. So a skin I would aim for is Jultan. So if you have 3 skins to spare, in which order I would recommend you to get them. Jultan first, Loren second, and then this thing third. Another thing that I have noticed is that the team on the right, I would recommend to go for the exact same speeds. I tried a few different kind of speeds, but these speeds just work the best. And the speeds are mainly on the Loren being plus 46, the Immensity being a plus 46, and they are set up in this order. So the Loren moves first, Immensity moves after, and then Sabrina is on plus 44. The Shaina can be slower, so that's not an issue. For this team, well, let's just go over all the teams. This one doesn't make any, it doesn't really matter when it moves, how it moves, or anything like that. Maybe it should actually, yeah, I think it has to be slower than Shaina. Maybe it isn't actually, but it should be slower than Shaina. Well, actually, it dies in 2 hits anyway, so Shaina never takes a turn before that anyways. If we look at the middle team, we have the Deborah plus 6, so you kind of want it to be as slow as possible. This one doesn't really matter for the speed as long as it doesn't outspeed anything. This one has to be faster than the Colleen. That is important. So this one is outsped by that thing. So that thing moves first. Colleen goes for the boost. And then we have the Bale moving. And the Bale has to be 1 speed faster than the Konomiya. Or, well, the Water Garuda. Because you need to have Water Garuda, not a Konomiya, otherwise it might skill 3. So that is for that team. Then the team on the left, we have this thing, doesn't really matter. You just want it to have as low defense as possible, because therefore you have slightly extra damage on the return damage. And then this one, I think this speed doesn't really matter all too much as well, but you just don't want it too fast. Same for this thing. Then you have in this team the Jultan moving first. You kind of want to have more crit rate on the Jultan, but I had to switch rune. And his damage output in the end isn't too much. Also, the artifacts for him are not really that great. Then we have the Odin moving, and then afterwards we have the Rogue moving. A few things that I noticed that were making this team fail is, for example, if you have your Shaina on speed from lost HP or something, that made my team fail at some point. This is actually a pretty terrible artifact. Also, your Shaina and Sabrina dying, so I actually had to add artifacts of defense and HP so they didn't die. Those kind of things made it fail. Other things that make it fail, if you have a certain desync. So a desync might happen where Bale hits his S3 before Odin actually did his skill. So you always want to have Odin with that skill. And sometimes you can have a certain desync where Bale moves twice and Odin moves less. You think it shouldn't be really possible to happen, but for some reason it sometimes happens that units kind of wait a while. Like, for example, this, you think the Bale could instantly go for his turn. He got the full attack bar, but he has a slight waiting point of waiting for maybe someone else to hit or something like that. I'm not entirely sure what it is, but you have a bunch of those kind of things going on. So I mentioned a bunch of like the things that could go wrong in this thing. Main thing that you have to do after you have everything set up is make sure that your units just do enough damage. And that is that the Bill has to do around like 80 Ks on the last hit. And your Odin, I think the Odin doesn't have to do as much damage, but it's also a trade-off. If your Odin does more damage, your Bill can be less damage, and the other way around. So in this, you technically only have 2 damage sets, which is the Bill and which is the Odin. Definitely focus best runes on the Bill, and yeah, with that, that's pretty much the update of my R5 team. So I hope that helped you out with that one. Also, I think the other video is more in-depth of how things are specifically working. This video is more showcasing the runes, what kind of skins that I added. As you can see, the Loren skin over there. I think, oh wait, I also, no, I don't have Immensity skin, so the Loren skin And we have the skin of the Jultan over here, which makes things quite a bit faster. Jultan skin is pretty important, if I'm not mistaken. So those are the updates for my R5 team. Hope you enjoyed this video. Like and subscribe if you haven't yet, and see you in the next one.